Good morning, Chair Chen and Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss with you the National Mall Underground project. My name is Judy Scott Feldman. I am Chair of the National Mall Coalition, a nonprofit organization dedicated to thoughtful, future-oriented planning for the National Mall, the stage for American democracy. Joining me today is Arthur Cotton Moore, Vice Chair of the Coalition and Design Architect for the Underground. Our presentation today provides an overview of the project and answers questions that have been raised about its viability, effectiveness, and cost. It includes a new addition in 2021. We propose an Alternative A design that responds to criticisms we've heard from some federal agencies of the car parking component of the underground. The National Mall, one of our most iconic landscapes in public spaces, is threatened by devastating flooding. This reconstruction shows how floodwaters in 2006 inundated Constitution Avenue, the National Archives, Smithsonian museums, and more. This was hardly the first time the mall area had been flooded. Floods did extensive damage in 1889, 1936, 1985, and as recently as July 2019, when a month's worth of rain fell in less than an hour, overwhelming storm sewers, flooding the National Archives' new visitor center and the White House basement. Flooded walkways around the tidal basin are a regular occurrence. 14 years after the 2006 flood, with a host of studies confirming the threat from agencies like DC Water, the National Park Service, and FEMA, there's still no agreement on what to do. Recent efforts by an intergovernmental flood response team, the DC Silver Jackets, have been unable to bring the relevant federal and DC entities to agreement on a solution. The biggest impediment, and pretty much everyone agrees on this, is the plethora of entities involved in mall governance. These include the Park Service, Smithsonian, plus DC and federal review agencies. No one entity has the jurisdiction or responsibility, or importantly, the funding, to tackle flooding. We want to show you what we think is an important contribution to solving the stormwater flooding crisis: the National Mall Coalition's National Mall Underground. Architect and Coalition Vice Chair Arthur Moore has been designing the concept since 2013. We've refined it in dozens of meetings with DC and federal agencies and civic groups. Both the Army Corps of Engineers and the Silver Jackets have reviewed it. What is it? The underground is a multi-purpose stormwater reservoir, mall visitor center, tour bus parking, geothermal energy facility. The basic box, a large stormwater reservoir, can be constructed beneath the mall's grassy panels between the Smithsonian Castle and the Natural History Museum. The underground can collect 28 to 30 million gallons of floodwater, the volume of a flood like the one in 2006. When not needed to collect stormwater, the lower floodable level will be a parking garage for tour buses. The upper level, not to be flooded, will contain car and bus parking, plus rest facilities for bus drivers and a mall welcome center with restrooms and food service. At one end, a small cistern can collect rainwater. At the other end, another cistern can hold groundwater pumped from beneath mall area buildings. This water can be used for irrigation of grass, trees, and gardens. Geothermal wells beneath the structure were added to the concept in 2014 at the suggestion of then GSA Administrator Dan Tangerlini. These will provide 3,000 tons of cooling per hour, enough clean energy to power not only one, but several Smithsonian museums and other public buildings. Vehicles may access the underground via the existing ramp from Independence Avenue to the 12th Street Tunnel, via a ramp between the Arts and Industries Building and the Hirshhorn, or through the 9th Street Tunnel. Cost estimates for the underground range between 260 and 320 million. That's a lot of money, but we have a plan. We'll get to that. The Beneath the Mall Stormwater Reservoir is not the Coalition's idea. It was one of 4 solutions found viable in the 2011 Federal Triangle Stormwater Drainage Study. That report, commissioned after the 2006 flood, was the collaboration among 14 federal and district agencies. but the cost of the reservoir, $400 million, was deemed prohibitive. The coalition's idea was to take the empty box beneath the mall that would sit unused most of the time and turn it into an active, visitor-friendly facility that will generate revenue year-round. Intrigued, the DC Council in 2017 passed a unanimous resolution asking the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to study its feasibility. In September 2018, the Corps found that, quote, flood risk from a storm of the intensity that flooded the Federal Triangle area in 2006 could be reduced significantly during a flood event by implementation of the underground. Also, revenue potential from parking fees and water credits may offer self-financing opportunities that attracts a public-private partnership. Also in September 2018, Arthur Moore and I were invited to present the underground concept to DC and federal agencies and local universities of the DC Silver Jackets team. Clearly, there is interest in the concept among mall stakeholders. However, the Park Service opposes it because it does not conform to its own 2010 National Mall Plan. Now I'd like to anticipate some questions you may have. First, aren't there alternatives that don't require digging up the mall? Let's start with some basic flood history. It's important to understand that DC has 3 different types of flooding. These slides come from a 2018 presentation by the National Capital Planning Commission. Riverine flooding happens during and after heavy rains as the Potomac overflows its banks. It happened in 1889, several times in the 20th century, and is common at Washington Harbor and Georgetown. Coastal flooding, or tidal flooding, happens when tides and storm surges push the Potomac northward. The submerged walkways around the Jefferson Memorial result from tidal flooding. Interior flooding has nothing to do with the rivers. It happens when heavy rains overwhelm the storm drains, inundating streets and buildings. This is what happened in 2006, destroying the National Archives' newly opened visitor center, closing museums and government buildings, and causing tens of millions of dollars in damage. Since then, stopgap measures like sandbags have been used to protect underground metro stations. While some corrective actions are being taken to address riverine and tidal flooding, none of these will protect the mall from interior flooding. The 2019 Silver Jackets report on interior flooding in the mall area concluded that of all the potential solutions studied, only 2 are viable. One is to build a new pumping station to pump floodwaters into the tidal basin. But what if DC gets heavy rains that cause both interior flooding and riverine flooding? Where would the water be pumped? The only other viable solution, according to the report, is stormwater storage under the mall. Construction will cause inconvenience. It will close off a 3-block area between 9th and 12th Street for about 2 years. But the Park Service's turf grass renewal project also closed off large swaths of the mall for 2 years, from 2014 to 2016, and visitors seem to adapt in anticipation of the beautiful carpet of green. We believe visitors also will forgive the underground short-term effects once they can experience its benefits. Second, won't the underground increase traffic and congestion? We think not. Tourist destinations around the world, for example, at Amsterdam's Museumplein Park, and close to home, Washington's National Cathedral, use underground parking to get cars and buses off the streets while supporting tourism and its economic benefits. The truth is, DC and federal agencies have for years been searching for ways to get buses off city streets. It's not just traffic congestion, it's also public health. The American Lung Association's 2019 State of the Air report gives DC an F for ozone, associated with high rates of childhood asthma. Buses parked in underground will be off the streets with their engines off. The Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments did a study of bus parking in 2015 and concluded that the proposed National Mall Underground would be the most dramatic improvement in bus parking capacity if constructed. As for car parking, the Silver Jackets held another charrette in 2020 and once again endorsed the underground cistern concept. However, they rejected ancillary uses such as parking. The coalition has taken this criticism of the car parking component seriously and in response developed Alternative A. This alternative design includes no car parking and instead provides 2 levels of bus parking. Third, who will pay for it? From the beginning, we believed that revenue generated from the underground's various components could provide creative financing opportunities. So in 2018, we commissioned a financial consultant with strong experience in government projects to develop a financing plan. The consultant concluded that for federal and DC stakeholders, the National Mall Underground can achieve a stormwater mitigation solution at significant cost savings in comparison to the other alternatives thus far identified. Of equal value to the federal stakeholders is that the financing plan is expected to make use of existing federal contracting authorization programs to pay for the project over time, avoiding the need for a substantial upfront appropriation. The programs to which the consultant referred include stormwater credits, clean energy credits, sale of irrigation water, and parking revenue. Fourth, is the danger really so great? The mall is a product of 2 visionary plans, the L'Enfant Plan and the Macmillan Plan. Unfortunately, one of the unforeseen but disastrous legacies of these historic plans, is flooding. L'Enfant situated the low-lying mall along 2 waterways, the Potomac River and Tiber Creek. By the time the 1901 Macmillan Commission came along, Tiber Creek had been paved over to create Constitution Avenue. Also by then, the Army Corps of Engineers had created hundreds of acres of new land with material dredged from the Potomac, thus moving the Potomac shoreline 1 mile west. The Macmillan Plan used that land to expand the mall, westward to a monument to Lincoln and southward to what became the Jefferson Memorial. In other words, a good half of the mall is located in what used to be Potomac River bottom. And the complex of government buildings we know as the Federal Triangle sits over Old Tiber Creek. With the best of intentions, L'Enfant and Macmillan tried to tame nature, but now nature is roaring back. The urgency to act is real. This 2018 Park Service report projects the effects of sea level rise and storm surge on our national parks. Its projections for a Category 3 hurricane in 2050 show almost the entirety of the mall covered by floodwater in blue, except for a 5-block section that happens to include the site for the National Mall Underground. In conclusion, the National Mall Underground provides what mall stewards want, but have not been able to agree on: a single, comprehensive solution to the flooding threat to the mall and Federal Triangle area. It also addresses another urgent mall-wide need: clean energy. The underground's 3,000 tons per hour of geothermal energy can provide that sustainable alternative, and not just for one building, but for many. Consider, for example, the Smithsonian's plan to upgrade the Arts and Industries building in the castle. The plan calls for new heating and cooling facilities and a new stormwater cistern beneath the castle. In coming years, this commission can expect to be asked to approve other piecemeal solutions for clean energy and flooding problems by GSA, National Gallery of Art, USDA, and other mall stewards. With the National Mall Underground multi-purpose facility, the Smithsonian and others could eliminate flood storage and geothermal energy from their planning needs, and in the process, save taxpayers' money and reduce the need for years of construction projects on the mall. Commissioners, the last time our country had a truly comprehensive plan for the mall was 120 years ago. Now again, we need sites for new museums and memorials, but we also need ways to rise above jurisdiction-based thinking and duplicative building-by-building infrastructure improvements. With the National Mall Underground, the coalition is offering innovative, all-inclusive thinking about the future of the mall. We urge this commission to support further development and construction of the underground. And in the spirit of the L'Enfant and Macmillan Commission, we urge this commission to take up its role as advisor to the President and Congress to initiate a new comprehensive and visionary plan for the entire mall in the 21st century. Such a plan can create an optimistic, future-oriented, and lasting legacy for our nation as we celebrate in 2026 the 250th anniversary of our founding.